Alrighty then, Mysterio. Who is he? Well, the hell is he doing in Far From Home, fighting stuff, being like a hero? Mysterio ain't no hero. At least I don't think he will be. But I'll come to that at the end of the video. This is just Square One's quick video on who Mysterio is and what we think he will be doing in Spider-Man Far From Home.
You don't want any part of this.
Just to be clear, we're going to be looking at 3 versions of Mysterio. The 3 versions I at least find most enjoyable. Quentin Beck, Francis Clume, and the idiot Mysterio. So first, just some key points about Mysterio. He's a member of the Sinister Six. He's fought Kingpin, he's even convinced Logan to quit being the Wolverine. It's a shame because most of the recent incarnations have been quite tropey and magician, like stereotypical arts magician guy. But I'll go into that a little bit later, especially with Mysterio. I goddamn hate that guy.
Don't be afraid. I'm here to help. I am Mysterio, and I am putting Spider-Man on notice.
So first off, we got Quentin Beck, the original Mysterio. Now, Beck was originally a special effects artist / illusionist, working on films and things like that, but his career hit a complete standstill, and obviously when that happens, you gotta think of other things to do. Beck was very, very interested in becoming an actor beyond his special effects job, but unfortunately, he was completely shunned, ridiculed, just completely degraded. He attempted to become an actor, and everyone basically told him he was an idiot and he was never going to make it anywhere, and he should leave and never come back, leaving him in quite a predicament. So, in response to this, like any sane man, he decided to put his special effects skills to the use and become the supervillain Mysterio. Now, it's key to note that Quentin Beck's Mysterio actually had 0 superpowers. He was purely just a special effects and an illusionist. He used his skills to be able to deceive Spider-Man, even get around Spider-Man's spider sense. He used hallucinogens and certain chemicals to nullify Spider-Man's spider sense, which is quite a cool fact, I think. The fact that someone who is purely just a stunt guy and effects artist was able to go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man. It's very cool. In fact, one of the first ever confrontations between Spider-Man and Quentin Beck's Mysterio was when Beck framed Spider-Man for robbing a museum, and would have completely gotten away with it if it wasn't for Spider-Man secretly hiding a camera and filming him the entire time. Just to round up Beck's incarnation of Mysterio here, the original, he held no superpowers, he was able to nullify Spider-Man's spider sense, and he used his powers of deception over Brawn, much like Venom or any other Spider-Man characters, to totally go toe-to-toe with Spider-Man. He was very much a Riddler-esque force in the Spider-Man universe, and the Marvel universe in general.
All right, Mysterio. Here I am. Where are you? What kind of trick is that?
No tricks, Spider-Man. I am Mysterio, and I'm going to destroy you.
Alright, so the second incarnation of Mysterio is next, Francis Clume, or Clum, I never know which pronunciation is. So unlike Beck, Clume actually had superpowers. To be specific, he was a mutant, which would have been super cool if they could have put him in Far From Home as Mysterio, if they'd have known about the deal to get the rights to X-Men and everything. It would be a real cool surprise. Well, unfortunately, I don't think that is the case. Although in the trailer it seems like he is using superpowers. He's got the green beam coming from his hands and things like that. He's flying around and stuff, fighting elementals. I don't know, it possibly could be that it is Francis Clume, but as I've said, a lot of reports are saying that it is Quentin Beck. I think I would prefer the idea that I have, or think they will be going with for Quentin Beck, which I'll be getting into at the end. But Clume was tragic as hell. His story is awful. He was basically a mutant who was abused by his brother both physically and sexually. And his brother, using the fear that he garnered, obviously, used Clume in his criminal organization and basically just in general to help him get what he wants. But ultimately it was Clume who would have the last laugh, because once his brother went too far, boy did Clume get his revenge. So basically once his brother decided to dope and rape Black Cat, Clume decided that was a little bit too far and used his mutant ability of teleportation to teleport inside of his brother's body and rip it to pieces from the inside out. Yeah. Weird, dark, mental, but at least Clume was free from his brother now, right? Well, unfortunately for Clume, Spider-Man happened to be nearby and noticed that Clume had murdered someone and had appeared to kidnap Black Cat. And unfortunately, a confrontation happened between them, where Clume was severely wounded and lost his leg, and in true supervillain origin fashion, he declared that he would forever seek revenge against Spider-Man and the terrible deed he had done to him. But how does this relate to Mysterio, you might say? Well, it was lucky for Clume that Quentin Beck at this time of the comics had just passed away, or rather faked his death, depending on which side you want to believe. And the best thing Clume could think of to come up against his new enemy of Spider-Man is by taking the persona of one of Spider-Man's older enemies, that being Mysterio. Basically, Clume was able to take the Mysterio helm, become Mysterio, and what's really interesting is he actually could be a Mysterio with powers. So while when Quentin Beck donned the persona and everything, at the beginning, people assumed he had powers because of the crazy illusions he was pulling off, but everyone realized at the end that it was all just illusions and he's just a guy with good knowledge of effects. Whereas when Clume did it, it was the opposite. People assumed that everything he was doing was an illusion, but because he actually had powers, it's quite a good duality. It was quite like comic book wise, it's awesome to see like the two sides of Mysterio in terms of his perception, both deceiving people as illusions and deceiving people into thinking you are committing illusions, even if it was inadvertently in Clume's thing. But it was a good story moment. But the main reason that I decided to include Clume as the second persona I would present instead of the actual second persona of Mysterio is because I feel like Clume's story and the fact that he is a Mysterio with powers might have more ramifications than Far From Home, especially if they've decided to actually give Jake Gyllenhaal's version sorcerer type powers as opposed to just the simple illusionist powers of Quentin Beck's Mysterio. And going off what we saw in the trailer, with Mysterio flying around shooting green rays at giant elemental type looking creatures, it seems like there is a chance that Mysterio could actually have powers, meaning that they've been inspired by Clume's version of the character. Although it is just as likely that it could be illusions, but I'll go into that further at the end. Now the third version of Mysterio I will be mentioning is obviously the most superior, the best version of Mysterio they have ever done, the almighty Mysterion. Now earlier on I mentioned how Mysterio in some mediums can be quite tropey, being like the stereotypical magician style.
I am Mysterio, and I'm going to destroy you.
Posh accent and things like that, although it's a little hypocritical of me. But Mysterion, I feel like, encapsulates all of this, and the only reason I'm including him in this video is because his story and character is absolutely hilarious. Mysterion's true identity is unknown, but what we do know is he was a man who purchased the original Mysterio suit from a man in Africa. And he would go on to fight characters like the Superior Spider-Man, or the Doc Ock-controlled Spidey, and get himself indoctrinated into the Superior Sinister Six by Doc Ock's same spell, or trance, or whatever the hell he did. Now the hilarious thing about Mysterion is that as soon as he broke out of this Sinister Six, not only did he decide to fight someone, immediately lose, be indoctrinated into the thing that he was fighting against, as soon as he left, his main strategy was to create an army of dinosaurs. Yep. He launched an attack on a city with an army of dinosaurs, and of all things, he was defeated by Squirrel Girl. So, ladies and gentlemen, the main reason I like to include Mysterion is to show how comic books can sometimes go a little bit too far, and because it gives me the freedom to be able to say that the great and powerful Mysterio, in the form of Mysterion, was defeated by Squirrel Girl.
or face the wrath of Squirrel Girl.
So there you have it, there's my breakdown of the three most prevalent versions of Mysterio, at least in my opinion, and when compared to what's going to happen in Far From Home. Now I'm going to be moving on to any theories, ideas, about how the origins could relate to Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio. Now then, which version of Mysterio will Jake Gyllenhaal be playing in Far From Home? I think there's probably a 90% chance that it's going to be Quentin Beck, just purely because Marvel are going to be going for the most well-known version of the character. As well, I have a couple of ideas on how that actually would work within the story from the quick glimpses that we've seen from the trailer, because people have been confused, to say the least, on whether he's a hero, a villain, or an anti-villain. I personally think that Marvel are going for the complete illusionist version of Mysterio, which I'm super hyped for, and will be awesome if that's the case. Now by this I mean that the colossals, the elementals that we see in the trailers are illusions, and that Mysterio is conjuring these up, whether through effects or actual abilities. I'm unsure, we've only seen some out in the trailer, but either way I think he's using them as a form of media being able to latch onto him to give him his break that he's always been desiring. You know, he's a failed actor, he wants to get in the spotlight, the media is going to believe everything. As a side note to this, a lot of films at the minute are trying to show how the media are easily manipulated because of the stuff that's going on in the world. I don't particularly want to get into that much, but I do think that that could be a very easy way that they could incorporate that into Spider-Man Far From Home. If Mysterio is purposely manipulating the public, the media, into thinking that he's this brand new hero. Even in the trailer, they say he's Thor mixed with Iron Man. They're already getting hyped about how good of a hero he is. Again, to add to this is even further, like the idea that there's a noir Spider-Man suit in the film, also I think adds to the fact that it is going to be like a classic illusionist Mysterio. Because if he is manipulating the media by fighting off these Colossus, which are his illusions in the first place, and then Spider-Man happens to come over and also start fighting them and take some of the spotlight off him, Mysterio is going to want to try and frame Spider-Man for something. And much like the really early Mysterio stories, I could really see Mysterio framing Spider-Man for something and Spider-Man having to go undercover in the noir suit. Therefore, Mysterio will regain his place in the media and his popularity, and him being able to have the spotlight, the role of a lifetime, to quote Clayface from Arkham City, whereas Spider-Man will have to be working in the shadows to try and prove that Mysterio's a fraud, or at least try and show that he's deceiving everyone. As a side note, my friend in the reaction pointed out that there could be a more Clume version of Mysterio that Jake Gyllenhaal's playing, especially if he is just a straight-up sorcerer who is fighting these Colossus elementals. He had the idea that if Mordo is somehow involved in the film, there would be Mordo hunting down the sorcerers, much like he said he was going to at the end of Doctor Strange. And if Mysterio happens to be a sorcerer himself, then it would make perfect sense that Mordo would be using the Colossus to try and get Mysterio, and Mysterio would be seen fighting them off, hence why in the trailer he's seen as a hero. I like this idea quite a lot, mainly because it would incorporate Doctor Strange-esque fights between Spider-Man and Mysterio, which would be awesome, and Spider-Man, Mysterio, and Mordo. Although I don't think it's going to be the case. If anything, I think they could still do that with the illusionist side and just have it so Mysterio's influencing Spider-Man during the fight, so it's almost like a mental fight going on. I mean, that would be cool. But it's a cool idea, and I thought I'd mention it because it may well be the case. I just don't think Mordo is a big enough villain yet for it to be so key to the next Spider-Man film. I feel like they would have had to have done Doctor Strange 2 beforehand. But yeah, I honestly think both ideas are good. I would personally prefer my idea of it being the classic Quentin Beck, just because I feel like it'd be awesome, especially with Jake Gyllenhaal playing him. It'd be quite a different superhero film for a change. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Which theory would you prefer? Which version I've mentioned is your favourite? And do you disagree with me with anything? Right, oh yeah, and be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.